Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of one of my favorite things to do, Trump Trolls Trump, in which one person named Trump essentially mocks mercilessly, relentlessly, and hopefully humorously another idiot named Trump. I am not giving anything away. I will not tell you who's doing the mocking. I will not tell you who the fucking idiot is. I'm going to let you decide. Okay, so this week, also, by the way, it's not just the idiot with the last name Trump. It's his inner circle and his sycophants and his enablers and, you know, the other people in the fascist regime who seem to think that that guy named Trump isn't insane. Go figure. Anyway, this week, Oliver Stone, yes, Oliver Stone, addressed the House Oversight Committee's task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Yes, that's a real thing. And the hearing, the first of its kind, focused on the newly released so called JFK files from the National Archives. If you're feeling like this is a little bit confusing, at least I'd like to assume, you understand the difference between Oliver Stone, who's a filmmaker, not last I checked, an expert on anything having to do with national security or National Archives, and the political hitman, Roger Stone, the guy who has a massive tattoo of Richard Nixon on his back. But apparently, not the brightest bulb in the box, Representative Lauren Boebert does not understand that distinction.
Mr. Stone, you wrote a book accusing LBJ of being involved in the killing of President Kennedy. Do these most recent releases confirm or negate your initial charge? Being involved in the assassination of President Kennedy.
No, I didn't. In the film, if you look closely, there's no such statements.
Mr. Morley, I think you had something to add on that.
I think you're confusing Mr. Oliver Stone with Mr. Roger Stone.
It yet.
Who?
Sorry.
It's Roger Stone who implicated LBJ in the assassination of the president. It's not my friend
Is that what all the
Oliver
whispers
Stone.
were there? I may have misinterpreted that, and I apologize for that.
I misinterpreted? You mean you were totally wrong? What was a little weird, though, is that, Oliver Stone, who's apparently an expert in these things, was he saying, hey, did I write that book? It wasn't clear to him either, it seemed. But this is the level of preparation these Republicans do at these just vitally important hearings, because that is how they think is the best use of their time. And that's apparently the best use of taxpayers' money. And listen, when you've got Donald Trump spending tens of millions of dollars of our money on golf, why shouldn't they, just hold hearings that are stupid and meaningless and pointless and then not even prepare for them? I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the right people are in charge. And yeah, I'm being really sarcastic. Okay, before we go further, please hit like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We are pushing for 400,000 subscribers, and as independent media, your support helps us reach more people and keep this going. Now let's get right back into the confusion, because there has been so much of it this week. It was reported that the National Security Advisor and creator of the Signal War Plans Group, the greatest national security debacle in modern history, was not only using phone apps for correspondence, but he was also using Gmail. Yes, Google Mail, not, as far as I'm aware, known as a particularly secure means of communication, especially maybe if you're using it to convey highly sensitive human intelligence, for example. Waltz reportedly received, quote, potentially exploitable information, unquote, via his Gmail, including his schedule and work documents. Additionally, an aide allegedly used Gmail to discuss sensitive topics such as military positions and weapon systems. And what is all the fuss about? Who could use that against us? However, that having been said, this is pretty sloppy, even for these pros. Here's what Senator Chris Murphy had to say about this crew of idiots who are now in charge of our national security.
Newsflash, these guys are incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, we hired a weekend Fox News host with no diplomatic or management experience, with a checkered personal history of abuse and alcoholism, to be our chief national security official. And it's going very badly. I don't know that anybody could have seen this coming.
Really? I don't know if anybody could have seen. Are you kidding me? Okay, Democrats, I swear to God, if you don't stop that, what can I possibly do? You need a good talking to. Cut it out. Of course, we could have seen this coming, because it's not just about their incompetence. It's about where their allegiances lie. These people are traitors who support a traitor. They're insurrectionists who participated in an insurrection and support the guy who incited the insurrection. They support the guy who betrayed this country time and time and time again. Yeah, they're incompetent. Yes, they never should have had these jobs. However, incompetence, potentially, you can overcome. What you cannot overcome is they are a bunch of fascists who have nothing but the most malign plans for this country and the American people. So please stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Please stop pretending we couldn't have seen this coming, because one, who is that for? You make yourselves look like a bunch of idiots who just could not be bothered to be paying attention. We should have seen this coming for 8 fucking years now. All right, I know that's not funny, but I had to get that off my chest. Anyway, back to the Trump regime, in which the incompetence knows absolutely no bounds. There are no limits to the incompetence of the Trump regime, as I think we already knew and, are becoming more and more aware. Remember earlier this week when Elon Musk tried to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court race by pouring in millions and millions of dollars, like $21 million? He even staged a big rally where he came out on stage in a cheesehead hat and openly bribed voters with gigantic $1 million checks. Like, they were gigantic, and like literally, and in the sense that they were for $1 million. Didn't work though. I mean, I'm speculating here. I think it could be because anybody seeing him come out on stage in a Wisconsin cheesehead hat would have been offended, because he has no right to wear one. I'm not maligning the hat. I'm maligning the wearer of it. It turns out, though, that despite all of his great efforts to pretend that he's human and a man of the people, Liberal candidate Judge Susan Crawford defeated conservative Judge Brad Schimel. In fact, Musk's idiotic antics may have ultimately fueled Democratic opposition and helped Crawford secure the victory. For all we know, he also suppressed Republican participation in the election, because who would want to vote for Elon Musk's candidate anyway? But Representative Brian Steil of Wisconsin claims the big money influence really came from George Soros, not Elon Musk. I actually do find it rather enjoyable when facts get thrown back in the faces of these shameless liars. Just watch the CNN clip from just before the race.
But it shouldn't be lost on your viewers that George Soros has poured millions of dollars in, and the Democratic governor of Illinois, the state to the south of Wisconsin, has also poured millions in. Why? Because the left wants to drive forward a radical agenda. In the state of Wisconsin, we're concerned about parental rights, school choice, voter integrity, and that is why in Wisconsin we're working so hard to get Brad Schimel on the court.
I looked at the numbers. When it comes to George Soros, he's donated $2 million to the Wisconsin State Democratic Party this cycle. Just by comparison, you're looking at $19 million, more than $19 million for Elon Musk and affiliated groups, is why I asked specifically about that.
I think, $19 million, that's more than $2 million, last I checked. It's actually almost 10 times more than $2 million. Yeah. Arithmetic, it's a thing I can do, because I watched Sesame Street as a child. So, interestingly enough, that guy, Representative Steil, was pretending that Republicans cared about what happened with the balance of the court. Because if you'll remember, the Democrats had a 4-3 advantage in the Supreme Court. A liberal judge was retiring, and basically the Democrats were trying to hold on to that advantage. Republicans were trying to flip it. So Republicans are pretending that this was actually about what was happening in Wisconsin, issues like school choice and all that other bullshit that he was spouting. The truth of the matter is, this became a national race because of Elon Musk and because the Republican Party is so desperate to keep their narrow majority in the House of Representatives. And they knew that if Republicans did regain the majority of the state Supreme Court in 2025, as they had it between 2012 and 2024, they would be able to pull the same kind of underhanded shit that they've been pulling for 12 years by gerrymandering district so badly that Democrats could never, ever win in certain congressional districts. That's why. Elon and Donald, though, I mean, this should shock us, but they still have their defenders. This week, Donald Sycophant and Small Business Associate Administrator Kelly Loeffler, remember her? She used to be a senator of Georgia, weighed in on the impact of DOGE on small businesses and tried to clear up any confusion, which would be fascinating because I don't think that's possible. Let's watch.
We have to make sure that we're operating like a business, being accountable to taxpayers, regaining their trust, and that's what COVID is helping us. That's what certainly the DOGE team is helping us do.
What? I mean, I think the best way to help American taxpayers would not to be spending their money on a lot of golf trips. That'd be one way to do it. Another way to help American taxpayers, let's see, not destroy their 401ks. That'd be good. Not make it so that the retirement age is going to be 92. That would probably help them as well. And by the way, this is what they call a tell. I think in poker or in any kind of gambling, right? A tell is when you sort of tip your hand and let people know whether you're like bluffing or what have you. It's a tell when anybody says that we need to run this American government like a business. They're either lying to you or they are so deeply stupid that they shouldn't be trusted, because the American government is a very complex, massive entity that is nothing like an American business. And even I know that. So it seems like Loeffler might have COVID on the brain, which brings us to the big story of the week. How, you might ask? How? How are we making this leap? Well, we're going to find out. Donald placed across-the-board tariffs on every country in the world except 3 that I'm aware of. Russia's close ally, Belarus, and murderous authoritarian dictatorship, North Korea. Cool. This move has caused the stock market to dive to depths not seen since his last presidential term. Losses this week are comparable to the COVID shutdown crash of 2020. But more perplexing is that some of the countries on Donald's tariffs list, and this is even for him, this is sort of weird. And again, as we all know, he's like the most deeply weird, in the creepy, weird kind of way, person who's ever lived. He slapped tariffs on places that aren't even inhabited by people, but by penguins. Now, the question remains, because who would do such a thing? Who, unprovoked, would go out of their way to slap tariffs on penguins? Because honestly, it's got me thinking, what have they done? What have they done? And the other thing it has me thinking is, do penguins export? You learn something new every day. I'm willing to keep an open mind. So here's a report to catch you up on what has been happening. Is there some kind of subversive underground of organized penguins? Take a look.
With the markets plunging and America's allies reeling, President Trump undeterred, defending his tariffs, arguing this is all going according to plan.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing.
But Wall Street firmly condemning Trump's efforts to reshape the global economy. Markets tumbling. Economists warning American businesses will pay more to build products here than overseas. Costs that will be passed on to consumers. The president's top aides out in force, brushing off concerns about skyrocketing prices, urging Americans to have faith in the president.
You got to trust Donald Trump in the White House. That's why they put him there. Let him fix it.
Trump even tariffing islands off the coast of Antarctica that don't produce anything, one that's mainly inhabited by penguins.
We've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. We've never seen anything like it. That's for sure. Holy shit. By the way, never produce anything. They produce penguins. What's wrong with you? God. So I want to get back to this patient analogy. I think we're going to leave the penguins alone. The penguins are organizing on Threads, so go check them out. They do have a plan, and they're on the right side of this. Trying to slap tariffs on a penguin. That is just wrong on so many levels. But I want to get back to this patient analogy. America is like a patient that needed an operation, and now it's going to be all better. Well, it turns out the patient wasn't sick. So you ever hear those stories? Somebody goes in to have like an arm amputated, and the doctor amputates the wrong one. Yeah. Well, this is like a patient going in for an appendectomy, and Donald has amputated both of their arms. I mean, it's it's insane. It doesn't make any sense at all. And the idea that he fancies himself some kind of surgeon who's going to cure us of our absolutely imaginary ills kind of disturbs me greatly, because he's the sick one. There is, however, a plan, in addition to the Penguins plan. I just want to make that clear. So in this week's Take It or Leave It moment, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pleads for calm. Watch.
He said that the president right now is with the trade and tariff team. They are very confident that this is all going to work. But what if they're wrong?
They're not going to be wrong. It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades. We are focused on restoring the golden age of America.
When was that? I mean, 1929? Is that what we're shooting for? Because we're heading into Herbert Hoover territory. Actually, we're going to be leaving Herbert Hoover in the dust, by which I mean Dust Bowl. So I don't know why anybody listens to her. Nothing she says is true. Nothing she says makes any sense. We actually can see what's going on. We can Google stuff like Dow Jones. Don't do it, but we can. We know what's happening. We know what's happening to inflation. We know what's happening to the unemployment rate. We know what's happening to prices. And yeah, people know what's happening to their 401ks. So please spare us your bullshit. And if you think that we are going to believe you, that Donald has surrounded himself by a team of experts who have been studying for decades how to make the American economy stronger, we're not going to believe you about that either, because you're a liar. What I do believe is that he's surrounded by a bunch of people who are idiots, who actually think they know shit about stuff about which they know nothing. And to the extent they do know anything, I'm pretty sure that this has been the plan all along. So for you, Caroline Leavitt, and Donald Trump, and Elon Musk, whose only ambition here is to enrich themselves at the price of the American people, yeah, it's all working out quite well. So clearly her word should never comfort us, but maybe this will. House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about the tariffs, and he added some words of comfort. Well, who doesn't want to hear words of comfort from Mike Johnson? He had this to say to the nation.
Look, you have to trust the president's instincts on the economy, okay? And why? This isn't blind faith. Remember what he accomplished in the first administration. Before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, not the U.S., the whole world. Every demographic was doing better. because we cut taxes, we cut regulations, and we made a better economic environment for everybody to succeed. And he is going about that same plan to bring that about, and tariffs is a component of that. And we'll see how it all develops.
Wow, that just flowed so smoothly because clearly he was lie. Every word was a lie out of his mouth, and he lies so well. Okay, not true. Manufacturing was down in this country before COVID. And I'm really, really sorry. You cannot split the Trump administration into the before COVID and the after COVID. Yes, COVID was responsible for some very significant global reversals for obvious reasons. It was a global pandemic. People couldn't work. There were massive supply chain issues. All of that true, absolutely true. Any administration would have struggled. However, he made everything worse on purpose. Donald Trump made a political calculation in the spring of 2020. He knew how bad COVID was. Of course, he knew. He was in the Oval Office. He was being reported to every day by experts who knew these things. And he decided, that's going to make me look bad. I want to win the election. So I'm going to lie to everybody. And then I'm going to do something even worse. I'm going to make people think that wearing a mask is bad, that it makes you weak and it makes you stupid. And he divided us and made it impossible for us to recover. And that's where we still are. So, no, you don't get a pass for that. And by the way, and I don't understand why this keeps getting lost in the shuffle. During the 2024 election, The Economist, not a liberal magazine, published a story about the Biden economy. And it literally said the Biden economy is the envy of the world. That's what Donald Trump inherited. And that is what he and all of his sycophants are squandering, which I know is also not funny. However, I'm going to change the subject and we'll get to something funny because we need it desperately. So, why wouldn't we trust Mike Johnson? I mean, why wouldn't we trust Donald? I mean, we wouldn't trust Mike Johnson to tell us to trust Donald Trump, first of all. And Donald Trump's instincts, I mean, the guy doesn't even have good instincts about how many Diet Cokes to drink every day. He doesn't even have good instincts about golf, which he sucks at so horribly. He has to cheat all the time. He doesn't have good instincts, period. There's no reason to trust him. 1, because he doesn't know anything. 2, because he's stupid. And 3, because he's like the most selfish, self-centered, narcissistic person who's ever roamed the earth. Okay, so maybe Donald thinks that the word groceries is an old-fashioned term. And maybe he thinks that somehow that will make him more relatable. I don't know. In this clip, he tells a crowd during his tariff speech that he, in fact, and you know what? This might make me rethink my opinion of him after all. So we're gonna look at this clip again, and listen. I am nothing if not open-minded about Donald Trump. I'm willing to consider any new evidence presented to me, of which there has been zero in the last 10 years. But if there's new evidence that will make me understand him better, that will make me give him the benefit, that will convince me that he deserves the benefit of the doubt, I will consider it like a mature human being. He tells us in this clip that he knows what groceries are. Take a look.
Likewise, an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I used it in the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. It sort of says a bag with different things in it.
Forget everything I just said. He's the stupidest moron who ever lived. And he's never been to a grocery store. He's never carried a grocery bag. And he doesn't know the things we put in the bag. What? Okay. He's insane. He's insane. That's the evidence to make him relatable to see like a human being. Like that's what we have to go on to say. Hey, maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. He's horrible. Anyway, we've all got to pitch on here. Pitch in. Prepositions, they can be complicated, except they're not really supposed to be if you're speaking in your native tongue. But, forgive me. It's been a week. So over on Fox, the state TV channel, the message that we are hearing about what's actually going on in the economy was a little different, which, we should expect because informing people what's actually happening would mean telling the truth. And that is just not Fox's jam. So the message to the 401k people, like most of us who are watching their retirement funds, is to stop being so self centered. Watch this.
And those 401k people who are depending, those retirees, all of that, just talking plain speak with them. Look, when this nation used to go to war, people in this country would support the war effort with their materials at home and making things for weaponry and all of that. We got to do 100% buy-in over this bumpy period. Just communicate.
What? Yeah, that is the solution to our economic ills. Just suck it up, you babies. Do not believe your own lying eyes. Let it go. Grow up. Well, I don't think that's going to help very much. Why? Because we don't have control over anything. Like, what is it that we can do to stop this madness? Nothing. The madness is the sole purview of one person. Yeah, that idiot. So what exactly is it that we're supposed to be doing other than what, just seeing how it goes? It's going really badly. And it's going badly intentionally. And this is what should drive us all crazy because according to a headline in the New York Times, despite all of the evidence, and I don't just mean some evidence or overwhelming evidence, I mean all of the evidence that Donald's stupid tariffs are causing global economic destruction, he's remaining defiant. And I'm really sorry, guys, but I called it. I want that hat. Actually, I really don't. I'm just kidding. But he certainly shouldn't have the Trump was right about everything hat. I mean, unless he's being ironic, in which case, sure, but he doesn't know what irony is. So no, he can't have that hat. Anyway, let's get back to some basics here. It was only a few weeks ago when Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, very reasonably, I think very reasonably, and with an excited demeanor, told us all we needed to get chickens for our backyards. Bird flu be damned. Okay, so remember that. I do because I've been scrambling around trying to figure out how to get a backyard for my apartment. I think that's a thing you could do. I think maybe I can get like a backyard addition to my apartment on the 26th floor. That's, I don't know how. Jetpacks maybe. Anyway, now she's really excited about these tariffs, and who wouldn't be? But what impact will they have on farmers? I mean, she's the Secretary of Agriculture. She's a legend. She's supposed to care about farmers because farmers, agriculture. I think those things. Again, if you watch Sesame Street and Electric Company, like you would learn like what things go together and which of these things don't belong. I'm pretty sure agriculture and farmers go together. But her response was not exactly comforting. Take a look.
While certainly the economy will be adjusting, the negotiations will continue. We are really, really excited and very grateful to President Trump's leadership and being willing to be bold and fearless in facing some pretty big policy challenges around the world.
So what is the impact on farmers then?
Well, we'll see, right? I mean, we're negotiating. Now we move into some significant negotiations. I mean, I've got a great chart here.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, we're negotiating. Negotiating what? What are you negotiating? You didn't have a plan. Everything this administration has done, from dismantling USAID to these tariffs to many other things, like dismantling other aid programs that actually paid U.S. farmers to export their goods to other countries. Everything this administration has done has been bad for farmers, and that is one of the very, very few constituencies that Republicans have claimed to care about. So I actually think that Secretary of Agriculture, whether you're that or whether you're Secretary of Defense or whether you work at the Centers for Disease Control, you have one job and one job only that we pay you for. And it's to kiss Donald Trump's ass, which to me sounds like the worst job on the fucking planet. But you people clearly have no self respect, no spines, and no basic human decency. So good for you. Hope it works out well. It's not working out well for our farmers. That's for sure. All right. So all we have to do, the whiny babies among us who have the audacity to care about our futures or our children's futures, is put our trust in Donald, right? Because he's so trustworthy. Has he not proven this to you yet? My God, what else must he do? So now what? Well, right wing media, not surprisingly, is having a hard time spinning all of this. Well, I don't think they're having a hard time spinning because you don't have to spin something if you don't report on it, do you? Of course not. If they did, it would be understandable. But sometimes, though, in the face of everything that's just crumbling around them, because honestly, otherwise it would literally be 24 hours a day of just interviewing people like Kid Rock and Scott Baio, whoever the fuck that is. They just kind of sometimes to break things up, to break up the monotony, to break up the lack of content, because again, they can't cover the real news because all of the real news just shows us what a debacle this all is and how God, I'm running out of adjectives to describe how horrific Donald is at everything. Um, so they just have to get down on their knees and thank Donald and ask him for more.
We know the lawfare, we know the fake impeachments, we know the assassination attempts. This man and his family have endured so much, but truly they have the protection of God and angels surrounding them in this process, and he smiles every day, and we smile every day here at the network and really throughout the country. It is like Christmas every day with President Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, because you know these complicated issues are being handled so well and so thoroughly.
What? Was that a live stream of a mega church pastor? What was that? Christmas every day, God is smiling, the angels. First of all, shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say, you psycho. Secondly, how do you, seriously, with a straight face, how do you say things like that when you actually do know what's happening? And here we are. These are the people who've been enabled. These are the people who get the gigs. These are the people who get paid the big paychecks. Why? Because they understand what their job is. And it's not to report the news. It's not to keep the American people informed. It's to protect the terribly fragile ego of Donald Trump, who really is just the most damaged toddler who's ever lived. And everything he's doing is making him worse. Why? Because everything he's doing is bad and incompetent and stupid and destructive, and he knows it. So, a lot of people need to get paid to help Donald change the subject away from the fact that he is the biggest loser. He's the most pathetic loser who has ever lived. And I'm quoting my grandfather here because this is not something I would ever say. He's a piece of shit. In closing, I'd like to hear a few words from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on how this is all going.
You almost have to be an amateur psychologist on this. It's like Trump is stuck in the 80s. His music, his clothing, his thinking. He has been on this tariff thing forever, and every economist, conservative or liberal, will tell you they just simply don't work. We use them strategically, but he doesn't fundamentally understand how trade works. It goes back to what I continue to say. I think the biggest myth perpetuated on this country is that Donald Trump understands anything about business. He's bankrupt every single one he's been into, and now he's bankrupting this country.
Yeah, well, that's a very long story for another time. But, not an amateur psychologist here. I'm an actual psychologist here. He's not stuck in the 80s, I'm sorry to say. I mean, in some ways he is. Well, I was going to say the 1880s, but it's really the 1850s. But that aside, he's really stuck in 1949 or 50, which was when he was 2.5 years old. That's where he's stuck. That's why this is also incredibly terrifying, because he is that toddler who is desperately afraid and desperately lonely, and he doesn't understand why. So we are at the mercy of a man who wants nothing more than to be loved. And he also happens to be perhaps one of the few people on the planet who is utterly unlovable. Now, that sounds horrible. It is horrible, but he has so much blood on his hands. I think the only thing we can do about it right now is laugh at him. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.